hopefully most of you are fellow divine feminines. Right now, I want to talk about what is more appropriately called the positive pushback. And it's when DMs get, well, when anybody, it's genderless and it's not so much part of a gendered energy. It's when they start to do the hot cold thing. Hang on just a sec. I'm doing a video, so you can get in and out just so you know. Um, I'm at the park with my son, which I love. I love being able to do this combination of stuff. So when they start, it oftentimes what this will look like is like you start to have, like, say you're texting with them or you're talking to them or you're visiting with your twin flame more often, and it feels like things get good, you know? And sometimes it's like really, really good, and you're like, oh my gosh, are they coming back? And then other times it's just a little bit good, but you're still like, oh, is it going well? And then they pull back. And then okay, what I'm going to say is there are many things about this that we don't see because we get stuck in desperation energy. And I'm going to share in my community page, I'm going to share another YouTuber who talks about this in a very elegant and simple way. And I really want to give her credit because she helped me out a lot on releasing desperation energy. Though there are many out there. You can look it up, releasing desperation energy with manifesting, like put in your search bar or look it up on Google or DuckDuckGo. But it's worthy of looking into because here's the thing. When you get into that push-pull dynamic, the runner-chaser dynamic, it's basically spirit showing you where the next step is. So if you, say, have a really great conversation with your twin, and then suddenly you don't hear from them, hours, days, weeks, whatever, you need to observe where your mind goes when that happens, because as I've been saying, imagination is the birthplace of creation. That's your connection to 5D. That's how you manifest things. And while it's funny to say it, like, we have to own that we do manifest these situations. We wanted to be healed. We wanted to experience genuine, healthy, unconditional love, which we cannot experience until we have healed our own inner wounds, childhood wounds, and desperation energy. So whenever we're like, I really want to be with my DM, Spirit, why isn't this happening? And then they come to us and we have a good experience and they pull away and then we freak out. That's the answer. That's the answer Spirit is giving you, is look at what happens when you get into a moment where you don't have 3D confirmation for something, or when things, like, time is not linear. So just because your twin is like, it looks like they're coming in and out right now, there's many things happening in the unseen and in 3D and 5D that you're intentionally not aware of, so that you can learn to do this, right? So the place to go with it is to get to a place to where you don't just feel gratitude about the deliciousness of that push-pull stuff. It's to where you feel delighted by it. You're not scared of it. You recognize that it's, but I was talking about this, and I feel bad because I feel like I was teaching a class in the live comment section of Divine Maverick's video, and I love you, Mama, and I'm sorry if that took away from anything. It was just a moment. But we were talking about it, and it's like, I used to be in a place, if you go through and look at my videos, I used to be all over the place in terms of feelings and stuff, and I got to this place to where, like, I actually find it quite hilarious that, like, both, not just my DM, but I mean those that I've worked with, their DMs do this too, because we're all recognizing of it. But we go to a low self-worth place in the beginning. Like, we go to this place of like, oh, see, how much longer am I gonna have to wait? I've been waiting a year, I've been waiting 20 years, I've been waiting 30 years. Like, I'm on 20 years interacting with my DM. I've been in union with it before. Like, there's a lot of it in there. But when we go to that place of like, how much longer is it going to be, what we're really saying is, I don't trust myself. I don't feel lovable enough to feel chosen while they're in a different 3D situation or they're not here with me. I don't trust spirit. I don't trust them. You see that? I don't trust. And you get the anxiety coming up. And the thing is, like, the irony is that we still come back to thinking about our twins. And I was pointing this out, is that when we think about our twins, we usually, our first initial reaction usually is positive feelings. And when we think about the future that's manifesting where we're with them and it's delicious and we're doing all the things, and we're doing missions, and we're, you know, we're in a place where we feel like we're contributing to the world, and we're safe in our connection, just all the things, like the really detailed things. The more details you can add to that, the better. Because if it's ambiguous and just this like undefined fairy tale fantasy, it's a lot harder to manifest it because you're not really being specific and clear about what you want to manifest. It's kind of like when you ask a tarot reader a question, or you ask the cards yourself. If you ask a broad question, you get a broad answer, you know. Or if you ask a silly question like, you know, what will happen 10 years from now, well, there's so many factors that could change in between then that it's, you know, it, even if it was accurate and maintained it, like, it's kind of silly. It's not bad or wrong, it's just silly. Like, if you do those things because you enjoy the absurdity of it, like, then it's great. But if you're doing it to try to prevent from having some anxiety about things happening now by wanting to know what might happen in 10 years, you're actually just trying to deflect and get around facing the thing that you're anxious about right now. And but here's the thing too, is usually what goes hand in hand with when your DM is doing that in and out stuff is usually spirit is also coming in and kind of picking at all of your comfort zone stuff. And right now in particular, we have planetary aspects that are also doing that. But, like, you know, if there's instability with you and your twin, there's instability between you and you. Okay. And when there's instability between you and you, there's also instability in your career, in your living situation, with your family, things like that. And we often, like, we have been trained to believe that those are all externals and that we have no power to do any of that. So then we get into a place of feeling like we can't feel inner joy and inner peace and inner standing until the 3D changes around to meet what we feel like our needs are. And then we just keep observing that and keep remanifesting it, because the things that you observe, especially most consistently, are the things that continue to manifest and continue to what's the word, that we perpetuate them, right? And so if you take it instead and you go to a place of getting out ahead of things and you get into manifesting that, how do I do it? I got to rewind it. It's when you understand that when you are fully in belief with yourself, when you are you are peaceful about the way that things are going and the story that feels most resonant with your heart, that feels delicious when you think about it, even if anxiety and fear come in to lie about things later. If the first thought or your most consistent thought when you think about something is good, that is the truth. That is the truth right there. And the more stable you become, the more reality flags you plant in that delicious feeling that comes first, that's when you start to notice that the universe, the 3D, does change around for you. That's when you start to have it happening. I mean, it happened in that chat, and I've seen it happen many, many times when, especially with other divine feminines, when we get into that, like, let's just talk for 5 minutes about the beautiful things that you imagine and what you love about them. And, like, this is part of why I like doing the Story of Us stuff that I put on, I have a playlist of it on there, because it's like I'm remembering all the beautiful stuff that's already happened. And then after that, I usually go and journal about all the beautiful stuff that I know is coming in. But that started from a place of simply wanting to shift my energy away from the focus of the 3D now stuff that wasn't very pleasant. But I always had this inner knowing, and I always had this inner knowing that there was just time that needed to pass, because there were various things that my DM needed to learn, some karmic lessons. And also I realized after a time that I was holding in place that it was just that he hadn't been healing, or he hadn't been doing the right stuff, and that if he came close and then pulled away, or if he said something out of character or mean or anything contrary to the fantasy in my mind, that somehow indicated a delay or a slowdown or an obstacle, or that maybe I was wrong, or that reader that I'd planted a reality flag with was wrong, or, you see what I'm saying? And instead I started to recognize that when I am firm in my reality, when I know that it's happening, it's all happening, and that I'm not worried about time, because, like, when you're talking about forever, I mean, I already 20 years going on with my DM. Another 20 years, like a few years, 5 years, 10 years in there, that's not really that big of a deal. And I can have an awful lot of fun in 10 years of time with, with whatever connection that my DM allows himself to have with me. And I came to realize, like, it's absolutely adorable, because, like, and I not only have I proven this to myself, I've proven it to lots of others who have talked with me, that it doesn't matter what I do. My DM can no more stop thinking about me or stop loving me than I can do that with him. Though the difference is, because I've worked on doing my shadow work, I can happily sit in my own space and be happy in the quiet and the surrender of that. I can communicate with spirit and get all the messages and communication that I need from him. And I've proven it over and over again. Like, when spirit shows me something that's right in front of me, and maybe I send it to him, or I talk to him about it, or he then reaches out to me and says something that lines up with the synchronicity that I saw. So I know that everything around me is communicating with me about him and about the rest of the collective. The trees are, the weather is, people are, this this card is, like, I am communicating with you, and I trust that. I no longer need him to confirm for me that what I know is true, either about the way he feels or anything like that. And the more that I sit in that energy, the less he tries to lie, and the less that he tries to bullshit with me or with anyone else, and even with himself. And it's because I'm no longer bullshitting with myself, and my bullshit was the anxiety. It was feeling like it wouldn't happen, or feeling like, oh, well, I have to have the standard of when I get married, and otherwise it's not in the plan, or, well, I want to be with somebody, so if I'm going to have to wait forever for him, then no, like, I'd rather go get with someone else. When I took that out of the equation, and I just worked on me and me, and I realized that as I worked through the layers of shadow work and all the stuff, like, for a while, I was afraid that if he came back to me, that I would get bored afterwards. And there was a while that I worried that if he came back, then we'd have to go through all the old fighting. And there was a while that I worried that, oh, well, because it didn't seem like he was healing very much, because he was still doing the in and out thing, that maybe that meant that when we got back together, he'd still be so far behind me and I'd be so far ahead that I wouldn't want to put up with that bullshit. And you know what? None of those things exist in my vibration anymore. Do you know how hard it was to even let those things channel out anymore? Like, my ego is so well trained to keep me in a balanced vibration that it is challenging for me to go back and talk like that. Because now what I think is, you know what? It's freaking adorable. Both that, one, he can go for so long without speaking about his feelings, and I know I can feel it. I can feel it from the 5D, and I can see in the way that he acts that he is driving himself nuts, because I am the safest person he's ever talked to, and he knows that I know him better than he knows himself, and it's relieving to him. He's able to be more productive in his life when we're able to talk. And even, like, when I stopped worrying about what he was being deceptive about, when I healed my triggers about lies and breadcrumbing and things like that, guess what happened? He wanted to start telling me about stuff. He started confessing things when I was, like, not even thinking anything about it. And, like, that was adorable. And then there will be other times that, like, he'll say one thing or another that I know is bullshit. And in the past, I would have been like, oh, is that real? Is that not real? How many people can I talk to and ask? How many readings can I check on to see whether or not that's real or not real? Or, or I would, go like, if that's real, why are you telling me? Or why are you behaving this way? I spent so much time and desperation energy examining it, and I'm not unhappy. This is why, like, if you're in this place, that's fine, but get to a place of gratitude, because that hypervigilance is helping you learn more about somebody than you ever would learn otherwise, when you get out of that desperation energy. But then I got to a place to where I was like, you know what, I already know the answer. And, like, it's great because it started with him. Like, I started just standing in my power, not being mean, but just when I hear somebody bullshitting me or bullshitting themselves, I I just, I wasn't like, no, that's fucked up. I could make a choice. Do I want to play along with this right now? Because it's kind of adorable. They're trying to lie to somebody who, like, loves herself enough to trust her intuition, and she's, like, so psychic, and she's got a channel, and so many different people that go, wow, you're right, wow, you're right, wow, you're right, wow, you're right. And even, and especially when it comes to my DM, like that, like, I mean, 20 years of seeing how right I am about big and little things, it's adorable when he tries to pull one over on me. And every time, too, it usually comes down to he knew that he couldn't. And then that makes me laugh because it's like now it's like a game of the challenge to see if he can finally pull off a deception with me that didn't later turn out to be that I actually knew and I was just letting him have his journey. I didn't, like, you don't always have to pop the bubble, and those times are almost even more funny than the times when I'm like, you know that this is going to happen, and then he ignores me and gets stubborn and lets it happen anyways, and then later go, I did tell you. You know. And then it's adorable too on the other end because I know there's many parts of him that are envious of what I've got going on, just me, just my energy and the things that I'm doing, and that my life is very easy now. It didn't used to be, but it's very easy now, and I'm glowing up, and I've got a clear trajectory. And he's seen me work from here's the goal where I have no resources and I have no real plan about how I'm going to get it to manifesting it, manifesting it, manifesting it, manifesting it. And now I'm in a stable place where I'm not worried about what he's doing. I'm not worried about what third parties are doing. I have no concern over what they think, other than that it makes me feel really grateful that they provide a lot of beautiful contrast, because I am definitely that different feminine in my DM's life, you know? And the fact that I'm not trying, that I'm not worried about it, that I'm not bothered by it, I'm not trying to interfere. I don't even, I no longer even have any thoughts about when's it going to be over, or when's he coming, or anything like that, because I know that it'll work itself out. I know that this time was meant, that he was needed for this mission. I no longer look at him as unhealed or not healing or stuck, because that's rather narcissistic to think that I could sit back and judge when I don't know everything that's going on in the 3D, and to think that I could know what another person needs for their path of healing. And we often get ourselves into that place, and it's usually when we're in that place that we're wondering, are they a narcissist, or is someone else a narcissist, or is the third party a narcissist? Because we're being very narcissistic in thinking that we have enough experience and skills to judge somebody's lifetimes of karma learning and whether or not they're healing based on it not even just not looking the way we want it to, but not equaling in the attention we want. Because really, if we own it, that's what it is. We're not getting the I love yous, we're not getting the everyday text, we're not getting the hey, let's move this relationship forward. And because that triggers other wounds that we have going on, it triggers our desperation, and then we start to get all judgy. We judge ourselves, we judge others. I call that shit talking ourselves, you know, like, well, I must not be good enough then because they're not giving me the attention that I want, and that must mean either they're not healing or they don't love me, or maybe I'm crazy. And these are all normal things to go through when you're doing the shadow work, but this is where you get from that self-talk into healthy self-talk of recognizing, no, oh my gosh, can you believe it? Look at how many different obstacles got brought in, and your DM is still connecting with you, still having you connect with them. Their third parties are still talking about you, still trying to create disruption, still trying to create all sorts of things, because they feel like you're going to come in and take their person, or that if their person, if you, see, anyways, like they feel like that. And then it's almost more threatening when you're not doing anything, like you're just being you, because you are just, that's, you don't need to do anything, you are lovable, your story is going to work out just fine. Like, you know, look at, release fear of attachment to time and look at it in a healthy way. Like, forever's a long fucking time. When you're, you know, in union, you've gone through all these missions and all the things in 3D stuff, you're gonna be really grateful that you got a break in the middle. You're gonna be really grateful that you got through and were able to hear messages like this and heal various things, because you're gonna have the kind of union that makes other people, like, it triggers them into healing themselves because of how your union and your story and your journey, not just with your twin flame, but with yourself, went. And that starts by getting into the place of recognizing, like, this whole time, how delightful is it that they keep reaching out to you. Like, we're talking about some of the most stubborn, egoic, prideful, petulant, immature twin flames, both masculine and feminine, who otherwise would not share their feelings, and they would not make themselves vulnerable, and they would not be talking about this spiritual stuff. They would not be exploring whether or not it's good or bad or divine or of the devil. They would not be in these positions, and yet they're still reaching out to you. They're still telling you they love you. They're still trying to discern whether or not they feel like they can, they can culturally mix mash with you. Like, that's delightful. And I say that with emphasis on those of you who, like me, have been in your journeys for a very long time, because a lot of twin flames got awoken in the last couple of years, and many of them just barely met their DMs and DFs. And if you've been in it for a long time, think about how delicious that is. You are that lovable. You are that lovable that they can put every obstacle in the path. They can get with somebody else. They can go through marriages. They can move. They can do all this stuff, and they still feel that pull to you, right? And then when you stop beating up on yourself and thinking that you did something wrong, or you allowed it, or you gave away your power, when you get to the place of recognizing that they only pull back because they feel incredible emotion and passion and love for you, that it scares them, because they've never felt that with anybody else before. So it's easier to go back to the people that they don't have such intense emotions with, because they're healing that shadow work with control and feeling weak and powerless, which most of them were told throughout their lives that they were. And guess what? When we're sitting there telling them that they're not doing good enough, when we're even thinking, you're not doing good enough, you're not doing healing the way I expect, you're not giving me the right attention, we're repeating that karmic lesson for them, that they're not good enough, that they're inadequate, that they're too slow, that they're making bad choices. But when we get into a place in our minds of going like, look at that. I mean, okay, so he gave it a try, and she gave it a try and fell back a little bit. It's okay. You know what? The next time around, this will be fun. And because I saw how that one happened, then I can expect that there might be another little stumble or maybe a terrible tumble, but they're going to get back up, because I know that if they tried to do it that time, they want to try again. And if they want to try again, then it works for me to get out ahead of that manifestation and be prepared, just by being in a grateful, delightful energy that's very encouraging. And so every time something, comes up that it's like, they're making the old choice again, I can go, you know what? Isn't that delicious? That they have such deep layers of ego that they really need it to get tough. I had to do that too, and you had to do that too. If you're here listening to this video, you had to do that too. Our egos were so trained and so conditioned to hold us back and to keep us safe and away from pain, that we had to get ourselves in such a hot mess that we had no choice but to change, and but to be in a different situation, but to glow up, but to heal, but to do this work, but to do our light work. And our twins are doing the same thing. In fact, if you think about it, if your DM is really, like a lot of DFs are getting into situations that are incredible tower moments and stuff, especially if they're sitting there saying, I can't now because this tower moment, that tower moment, this tower moment. Well, if you start contributing to that, going, see, it's going to take forever, you're adding to the negativity of that. But if you go up, if you vibrate up, and you're like, that's delicious, like, I wonder what the finale is going to look like. Like, if you got the energy this big, and there's this many red flags, and you're still sitting in that comfort zone, like, man, like, I bet you're going to be really good at holding your breath underwater for those swimming laps we're going to do in the summer in the Bahamas, because you really, really like to push yourself all the way to the edge. And here's the other really great thing too. I think really we undervalue this. As humans, the messier we get ourselves, when we get into bigger messes and the lessons are bigger, we learn them more thoroughly. We are less likely to repeat them if everything falls down and we hit rock bottom. And so if you think about it, like, whereas if your twin just like politely got up and said, you know what, I am done with this comic relationship and I'm going to go back to my twin, they probably wouldn't learn everything that they're learning, and it's very likely that they would bring the third parties in with them and a whole bunch of drama and a bunch of lessons and things that if you really want to go through that stuff, by all means, you can manifest it. But in my opinion, it's more delightful to be the observer watching them make it through all those things and knowing, like, and having spirit remind you all the time that, you know what, when this finally goes boom, it's going to be all of it. It's going to be the whole Agatha Christie novel. It's going to be full on healing that happens faster and more pleasantly surprising than I've been sitting around imagining. And when you get into that sort of momentum, you carry your connection because you're already in union. Union is harmony. So when you feel a harmony in your mind about what's going on with your twin, then you start to have more harmony. And here, you hear that? There's the ice cream truck, right? Total nostalgia on that. I'm going to leave this here. Let me know if you have more questions, if you'd like me to jabber on more about this, and I'll see you in the next video.